Namaste everyone. I wanted to talk about social anxiety and how yoga can help you with this. Now, many of you may know that a lot of my friends are dating coaches and I'm affiliated with them. I've been asked to speak at even one of their conventions this weekend called the Global SLR here in Los Angeles. And so we were at like kind of a mastermind meeting yesterday, and so it's interesting because there's all these dating coaches around. I don't know how to teach people how to date, but we're walking down the sidewalk afterwards, and it's kind of a paradigm apparently in the dating community that it's usually the man that approaches the woman. The man does the icebreaker or whatever, and it's very rare for the woman to do that. So we're walking down the street and I get approached by a couple women at two different times, and they're very interested in me and whatnot. And so one of the guys, he's asking me, how do you do this? Because even I feel it. This is him saying it to me. Even I feel it. There's like this kind of radiance. I just want to talk to you. And so I start giving him some hatha yoga techniques, and it's not really, he doesn't have a context for that because he doesn't practice hatha yoga. So when I talk about Kechari Mudra, which if you don't know what Kechari Mudra is, then I'm linking that below. Check that out. And so these are the 4 datums that I use when, and I wasn't always socially comfortable, and I'm always looking for situations that, I mean, within the realm of safety, are pushing the envelope of what's comfortable for me so that I can practice these principles. Because anxiety is a breath, anxiety is a heart rate, anxiety is a hormone. There are physical manifestations of these emotions that if you're trying to avoid, then just tap into the physical mechanisms that are creating them. You can bypass anxiety by tapping into your diaphragm, for example. And if you want to know how to tap into your diaphragm, I'll also link below how to stop your heart rate, which I gave a 30-minute free class on YouTube about accessing your diaphragm. Anytime you're in a social situation, you can tap into that sensation, as I teach you in that instructional, of your diaphragm. And this in a very basic sense, it will calm you down, it calms your heart rate down, and it takes your mind off of what's going on. Which actually brings you more into the present, because what's going on, the anxiety, is worries. They're images in your mind that aren't in the present. Anytime you're experiencing that kind of emotion, like a social anxiety, you're worried about something that's not actually happening. So a very easy, tangible way to get out of that headspace is to come back into your body, because your body is occurring in the present moment. So tapping into the diaphragm and the breath, which is that immediate phenomenon that's happening in the present moment, always with your body, with your living. You're either inhaling, exhaling, or holding your breath. There's somewhere there's breath in there. When there's no breath, there's no life. And so that's a very immediate technique. And these all fall under the realm of Ekatattva, which is a yoga sutra. This is an ancient yoga technique. It's just focus on one thing, and then when the turmoil is happening, as long as you have that one thing to focus on that's preconceived, a single principle, Eka, single principle, or truth, Tattva, single truth, then it's kind of like one of my teachers taught me the other day. When you have a little, and we talked about on the podcast, which if you haven't tuned into the podcast, you go to, on Fridays, we have a live podcast you can call in on and ask questions. So if you have a pain in your body somewhere localized, then just clarify it, focus on it, create it, the specifics of it, if it's at this joint or this muscle or whatever, and now move your awareness 2 inches to the left or to the right if it's on your other side of the body or whatever, 2 inches away from it, somewhere that's okay. So it's right there's the injury or the pain, and move your awareness 2 inches away on another part of your body. And right there, you're okay. And if you focus on there, it actually alleviates, it reduces the discomfort, because your mind is going to amplify where you pointed, what you pointed at. And if you point it at anxiety, then you get more anxious. And, why am I so anxious? Well, it's because you keep thinking about your anxiety. Rather, think about your diaphragm. Think about breathing, and it takes you out. Now, it's very easy to then become introverted and antisocial. So there's this contrast that you're always playing with of being you're in a social environment. If you want to not be social, then don't go out or don't be in social situations. But there's a deep urge in all of us, because we're people and we're social animals, to do that. So you're juxtaposing this internal awareness that is blending in with the outside world. Okay, 4 datums. Diaphragm is 1. Second one is the pelvic floor. So it's as simple as puckering the anus, but it could be as subtle as Mula Bandha, which if you don't have a context for that, you find my Mula Bandha Mastery playlist. I'll link it below, and that takes you through 5-step process to really discover the subtle awareness of Mula Bandha. It's basically just that region of the pelvis. It's the pelvic diaphragm. It's the same thing as your abdominal diaphragm, but in the region of the pelvis between the tailbone and the pubis, the front of the pelvis. So there's 2: pelvic diaphragm, abdominal diaphragm. The third would be your tongue, which I talk a lot about this. I have my tongue relaxation sequence to bring awareness to your tongue. I'll link that below. And I talk a lot about, in Kechari Mudra, we're talking about the tongue. Kechari is just creating space in the back of the throat. And this literally takes you out of your head, because when you're anxious, and you'll notice this anytime when you have something negative going on, even if it's just stress or you're problem solving, notice in your yoga practice, am I contracting the back of the throat space? That's called dukkha, or sukha. It's making space. And this is very, very important in all social settings. Create a sense of spaciousness in your throat, especially from the soft palate down to the root of the tongue, which is the hyoid, like the center of the throat. So there should be a column of lateral spaciousness, and this happens with a soft tongue and a soft throat. And when you combine all of these, it's very, very powerful. And that's what I do as I walk around. It's just in my pattern. I'm patterning my body to have a toned awareness of all of these things simultaneously. But you don't need that. It's just, I know that these are techniques that I've worked with some of these guys, and they're asking me questions, and I know it works when I describe them because I see the shift in them. If you focus on your diaphragm and your diaphragmatic breathing in this way that I instruct in that video, that will get you out of your head space and into the present moment. And in the present moment, there is no anxiety, because anxiety is a worry about the future. If you focus on your pelvic floor, little Mula Bandha, that'll get you out of your head. If you focus on Kechari Mudra, that will get you out of your head. And here's the 4th one that I'll teach you now. That these others, I'm linking to other videos, but the 4th technique I use is earlobes. So I bring my awareness to my earlobes. Pelvic floor, belly diaphragm, throat, and there's a throat diaphragm called the glottis, but I'd rather call it the tongue. We're working with the tongue. And the 4th is the earlobes. And it's kind of a trick of the mind. You can listen. There's listening meditations where you listen to nature sounds. A really cool one is to, if you're in a place that has a mixture of human-made sounds and nature sounds, is to listen in whatever you're doing, if you're standing, walking, whatever, and try to distinguish human-made sounds from nature sounds. Birds chirping, nature. Car driving by, human, and whatever. And the act of focusing on distinguishing those 2 sounds makes you increasingly aware of the void of sound in between sounds. It's just a natural byproduct of doing that. As you focus on, is this the next sound that happens? Is it nature? I hear the wind, that's nature. I hear the candy truck, that's human. And as you're doing that, you're not saying it like I am, I'm just saying it out loud. You'll naturally become aware of the space between sounds. Excuse me. And in the void, that's where the meditation happens. So what facilitates this and takes it really to the next level of consciousness, which is actually down deeper in the analogy, going deeper into the subconscious, is to shift. You're hearing in the ear. The sound waves are going in the ear, but if you could just pretend like you were hearing from your earlobe, and just to the side of it, just a little bit out of the earlobe. So it's a trick. Like if you ever see Buddha statues or heads of Buddhas, notice that he is often sculpted or depicted with a long earlobes. And this is why. It's a technique of Buddhism. So you pretend as if your hearing is coming from right to the next, to alongside your earlobes. And you're listening for the sounds between sounds. Now, it could be as simple as you just take in all sounds that are happening simultaneously, and you just listen to that kind of white noise of anticipation. It's very powerful to combine this with these other practices and awareness of your pelvic floor, of your diaphragm, and of your tongue, while you listen to the white noise beside your earlobes. Or the meditation I just described, just distinguish man-made sounds from natural sounds. So these are basically just the things that I do. And when you do this as you're in a social setting, but with a awareness that you're in a social setting, it's meant to be social. You're gonna hear a candy truck come by, and that's just going to be part of the video. So you bring your awareness into your body, and there's a natural radiance that comes from somebody that's very self-aware, someone that's very aware of how are they breathing, are they anxious, are they being awkward, what's their body position, and all of those things happen as a byproduct of just being grounded, being in what's happening in your body. And it's not possible to be very present or aware in a conversation with somebody if you can't even be present with yourself. So you can be present with yourself, and these are very easy yoga techniques that you don't even have to practice yoga. Just become aware of your diaphragm, your belly breath, become aware of your pelvic floor. You do it anyway when you go to the bathroom. It's just right there. Just be aware of it. Your tongue, which is important for everybody that's a communicator or speaking, so definitely check out my tongue relaxing sequence. And your earlobes. Okay. Now, there's obviously more. I do more things. I can and do more things as far as just little tricks. I get bored with these ones, and there's others. Anything that can get your mind off of what's going on the outside. For example, the jungle doctor breath, the breath of the jungle doctor called Ujjayi. I love using this, and we don't have time to get into it now, but what you do is you go to ninthlimb.com and you sign up for the silent flute, and on Mondays I go deep into it. Not necessarily every Monday do I do the jungle breath, but next Monday we're going over the obstacles to the mind so that you identify them so that you can overcome them. And otherwise they're just operating in the background and you don't know about them. You haven't identified them. And we go over, in next Monday, we're going over the breath of the jungle doctor and how you're probably doing it too loudly. So you can be really, really focused on your breath in the way that Ujjayi practitioners, which is the ocean sound, you make kind of a snoring sound with your breath, that's Ujjayi. You can soften that to the point where you don't hear it anymore. You're listening for the feeling. So you're trying to become, what's that word, when you cross your senses? It escapes me right now, but you're crossing your senses so that you can hear the feeling of Ujjayi. And so I'll stair-step you into that experience in the silent flute. And otherwise, definitely check out the Heart Seal that comes out October 1st. Podcast, so many things going on. Like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Namaste.